Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Microlink's Impact of Menopause webinar. We are rejoined by three amazing ladies. If you would like to ask any questions, please do either stick your hand up or put it in the question panel, the chat panel. We have got closed captions on here for those of you that might have some communication challenges. We will also be sending out the recording alongside resources pages. So this afternoon, we're actually going to start with the lovely Louise and Sally from Bodyline, who are partners with Microlink on this very, very important, very personal topic. So over to you guys.
Hello, everybody. I'm Louise Burns. I'm our client relationship manager and work with people like Tracey on raising awareness on menopause. And Sally?
Hi, Sally Ann Turner, MD and founder of Bodyline Medical Wellness Clinics, and here today to educate around what solutions we have from a health point of view for organisations and corporates in order to better manage their employees.
Wonderful. If you want, should we introduce Maggie and then we'll go back? Absolutely. If you want to start with your presentation. Yeah, Maggie.
Okay, yeah, I'm Maggie Burns. I'm a people consultant at Scottish Water. I work in our wellbeing and inclusion team, and a big part of my role is around the coordination of workplace adjustments for people in the workplace, but I also have other hats on within our wellbeing team, and one of them is a subject which is close to my heart, and that is menopause, and being an ambassador to help support people going through menopause.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maggie. Louise and Sally, do you want to kick off with your presentation then, please?
Yes, absolutely. So just scroll down there. Really, we're just going to talk a little bit about menopause because I think there's lots of myths around it, and people have half understandings of what's actually happening to them. So we're just going to break that down and just talk you through very simply what that is. So the stages of the menopause. So pre-menopause, no symptoms and still having your periods, and then going through into perimenopause. Now, perimenopause can start as young as 35, believe it or not. Unfortunately, the NHS does not always recognise that until certainly the age of 47. So there's a long time where women are afloat, really, I would say. They don't know where to go. They don't know what's understanding to them. Adrift, sorry, that's what I meant to use, adrift. They don't know what's happening to them. But quite often this is perimenopause, and we'll come back to that later about misdiagnosis. And then there's menopause. And actually, this is one day, and it's one day that you have not had a period for 12 consecutive months. And this is because the ovaries gradually produce less and less estrogen until obviously they stop producing eggs altogether. This in the UK is at the average age of 51. And then you go into postmenopausal. And this is really for the rest of your life. Your symptoms will change and they may decrease, but you are always in that period. Okay. Menopause symptoms, I'm sure everybody has seen the 48 symptoms, but actually there's a lot more than that, and it's very, very personal. That isn't it, Sally, that what happens to you as a woman, you may have one of these, you may have 10 of them, you may have all of them. It's you know, and I think some of the ones that don't particularly get associated with menopause, I'll just pick out a couple of those, is things like itchy skin. We actually see quite a lot of people through our clinic with this. And that's really, it's lack of estrogen, so sebum, so when the sebum production goes down, so obviously you're not getting the lubrication on your skin, that's caused it to become dry and flaky. Bloating and digestion, again, when your estrogen levels are changing, your stomach can actually become very sensitive to estrogen. So we may start in the morning with quite a flat tummy, but by the end of the day, feel really quite bloated. And this, again, this is down to sensitivity of estrogen.
So just in a simple terms, why do different women get different levels of symptoms? Is it's to do with our estrogen receptors. And we have many of these estrogen receptors all over our body because we reproduce, therefore we have a lot more than men. So those estrogen receptors are in our hair, those estrogen receptors are on our skin, they're in our bowel, they're all over. And, you know, you start to get fluctuations of estrogen. That's why those symptoms can span all over those different areas. And very often what we see is we do a symptom checker, and symptom checker is key because very often people don't connect the dots. So you know, they'll do a symptom checker and all of a sudden they're going, oh, actually, I've got about 6 or 7 of those. And actually, that's all related. Where, you know, when we go to primary care, they're treating them as silos. So itchy skin, you know, you'll get a cream or something like that. And obviously, the thing is that and when you put it all together, then it starts to become a picture of, okay, is that perimenopause or is it, you know, menopause? So that's how that works. That's why there's not one standard list, you know, and the severity can go from 1 to 10. And you can see why, because it depends on what people's hormones levels are and how they feel about that. So that's how this symptom element of going, all of these different things can be related to menopause or perimenopause.
Okay.
Can I just ask, we've got a question here from Ursula. Is the menopause impacted by PCOS? If yes, in what way?
Polycystic ovaries.
I presume that's what that is, she says.
Yeah. So yes, absolutely, because that can go both ways. We treat a lot of women with polycystic ovaries, and it's yes is the answer in simple. And all of these elements are around a personalized journey, and that a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. So, you know, that's then about, you know, us taking people through a treatment journey which is personalized to them.
Thank you. That's really useful. Thank you.
Oh, okay, good. So just as Sally talked about, these are kind of by age, how you can actually see your hormone levels kind of taper off. Certainly, you know, at age 51, it goes down. Just a demonstration there. And again, estrogen is one thing that we talk an awful lot about in menopause. And again, just a demonstration of how that declines. So really important to get our balances right. So I'm just going to pass back to Sally, who's just going to talk a little bit about our pathways.
So the balances, also one thing to note is we don't have 2 fundamental hormones as it would seem with the NICE guidelines, which is estrogen and progesterone. We actually have 3. And the third one is testosterone, which is, you know, a key part of that balance of hormones. So, you know, obviously we've got some challenges around primary care at the moment that some people will prescribe it and other people won't prescribe it. So, you know, when we look at that whole journey, some people do need testosterone, and testosterone is not just around libido. Testosterone is also about mental agility and those types of elements. So, you know, the mix of those 3 together is fundamental. And that's then about personalizing the journey. So really, this is a slide on, what the research is. And I think that we're probably all in a position now that we've been educated to a point that we know that we have to look at this particular area, because it does have a big impact on women, and women who are at key points in their career, and also that they've got other elements going on in their holistic life. And that might be children, elderly parents, all of those types of things. So that as culmination all together starts to manifest itself in different ways, and whether that's around sleeplessness, and whether it's around anxiety, and all of those different things. And we know that, when you get the treatment option right for menopause, that it's life-changing. It's absolutely life-changing. It's life-changing in their work life, in their family life, and all of those types of things. And we also know that, some women might be lucky enough to get a really good GP who knows what they're talking about and can personalize the journey for them. But we know, unfortunately, in the real world, that that's quite limited. So that's why we've looked at innovating treatment options into the wellness and corporate space very successfully.
We've got a question. Sorry, Sally, we've got a question here from somebody who has thankfully finished treatment for triple negative breast cancer in 2017. So well done you, that's brilliant. Thankfully disease free, but having spoken to the oncology team, they advised me to speak to my GP for referral for skin to a skin clinic, because I've got incredibly itchy skin all over.
Right.
And the GP, they weren't really looking at the HRT aspect of it at all, but are asking if you can suggest anything they can do to say to him, to persuade him to also explore the HRT route.
So there are complications with cancer and HRT, and it depends on what that is. There are other solutions out there which are not hormone based. So let's say if it's not just skin, it may well be hot flushes and areas like that. And there are other which are brand new, which we're just trialing, interestingly. I think it's called Vitosa.
Yeah.
A new treatment which is non-hormone based, that we can actually treat women who've had cancer because it's non-hormone based. So it's looking at all of those different options. But most definitely, the probability of that skin element will be a deficiency in estrogen. So my suggestion would be, with all of our treatments, we take bloods, we take a baseline blood. So you can actually see where your estrogen level is. So that's probably a start point for us to go, actually, let's have a look at where it is. We can then identify it with a symptom checker and then go on the journey, because it's more of an informed journey instead of putting a pin in a chart going, we think you're here. So
wonderful. Thanks, Sally. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I was just looking for the name. It's such a small screen and I'm squinting. My apologies. Coral, if it hasn't answered your question, please put a follow-up in the chat.
Yeah, we're happy
and we'll bring it back in.
Happy to answer that, no problem.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So I think where we're coming from, it's all very well having a menopause policy. I think most people have a menopause policy. If you haven't got a menopause policy, you need to look at that, because it's going to be a mandatory requirement for anybody, if you're employing over 250 people. But where the real difference comes in and the return on investment is for those people, where the adjustments in the workplace are not cutting it, and they've gone down the NHS route and that's not working for them, is what do you do then? And because, if they're in your occupational health system and you're consistently going back to GP and it's not working, what's the solution? So those are the solutions that we can bring to employers and say, we've got a personalized solution. We take your bloods, we look at the symptom checker, we personalize the journey, and we can then prescribe the appropriate treatment to get them back into work, feeling great again, feeling confident, and actually being productive, to be able to, continue on that journey. And of course, you could see with hormones, it doesn't actually, it does change as you go. And it's giving women the confidence to be able to manage that journey, and give them the right tools. And workplace changes may work for some women, depending on the severity. but not for others. So we see that end of that pipeline where we have to personalise the treatment in order to make that work.
We did have a comment on here, somebody asking, Lena was saying, I thought doing I'm presuming that's an estrogen test is unreliable as the estrogen levels fluctuate throughout the day.
They do.
Question.
They do fluctuate, but it gives us a good baseline because we do that in conjunction with a symptom checker. And, there is a lot of debate of whether those bloods are accurate or not. But what we found in our testing is that they give us a good baseline, and we will retest. So, and we don't just do estrogen, we will do testosterone, all of the other areas like the vitamin D, vitamin B12. So we look at the holistic, not just one.
And also just recently, the Menopause Society is rallying to actually say that more people we should actually be looking at blood testing. So they're trying to get that through at the moment.
Interesting stuff. So you've got some stats here. Can you tell us a bit about the stats that you've got?
Go through some of these stats because they're quite shocking, really. I think 4.3 million women aged between 50 and 65 when they're kind of probably at the peak of their career, but have got, as we said, got all these other life changes going around them. But they're holding, you're at your peak, you're holding those senior positions. But then also, we've also got as many women, so I'll just go to the flip side here, 1 in 4 of those women are considering leaving their job, and 1 in 10 do leave their job, which is crazy, isn't it?
It's really high.
That we've not done more to support here. And then also, if you look at it says 45 to 54, 11% of these people in employment, 23 of all women are in employment, and a third of those are going through perimenopause or menopause. So quite big numbers, 90% say symptoms negatively impact their work. And we were just talking about this before we came live, 40 million lost working days per annum, but actually we don't know how that breaks down. And as HR managers, actually, if a woman felt empowered enough to come and say, do you know what, it's because of menopause I need today off, it's not because I've got a cold or a tummy bug or whatever, then we would be able to record these stats further. And I think it would be quite shocking to see how much impact that has on the business.
So we see misdiagnosis in the blanket at the moment under anxiety, because anxiety might be one of the symptoms, and it's quite a common symptom. So that will go down as anxiety, and then it goes into your mental health stats, but in real terms, it may well be menopause. So as we get better at recording, and as occupational health providers start to put that as a separate element there, we can get better statistics on this. And as women feel more empowered to actually report it as that it's not going to be a stigma, that it is open and transparent, and they're more likely to do that if you've got the right pathways in place. So
very much so. I mean, we see a lot of it, don't we? See a lot of tick boxing without any follow through, no measurement of what the outcomes have been, has it removed the barriers and all that sort of thing, which I think is important. So
it's all very well having a policy, but actually does that lead into a treatment option that they think, do you know what, I actually want to go for that? So they're more likely to actually go, that's where I want to be and I need that help, therefore I am going to admit that I can't get out of bed at the moment, or I can't even remember what I did yesterday. So, I think once they're more comfortable to do that and they can see that people have put those in, I think that we're more likely to get better reporting.
We've got a question here, somebody saying they've got quite a strong history of breast cancer and the like within the family, maternal grandmother, mum had breast cancer at 76. The grandmother died of breast cancer as well, and they wanted to know, they've also got a diagnosis of autism and HEADS. The GPs haven't been helpful. but they are looking for something that's going to help them with their menopause. So again, does that go back to what you were saying earlier about this thing you're trying out?
Yeah. So
sorry, I was just going to say, but there's the argument, and I think Davina said it. You've for myself, I've got a history of breast cancer in my family, but then I've been tested, and keep being tested, keep having mammograms, and everything's fine. But then you've got to think all these, which you're just going to go on to, about the other health risks. So by actually taking HRT, that could actually prevent all these other health risks. So it is a balance. It's a really fine balance. So it's a very personal decision, and obviously talk to your doctor about it. But if you're then thinking, well, I have got that history, but actually in years to come, I'm going to suffer with osteoporosis or heart disease, so what is that balance? So it's a big decision to make, but I wouldn't not automatically discount it just because there's been a history. As I say, I'm not a GP. I would talk to your GP about that.
But we have got other solutions. The other thing to note with ADHD is there is a really significant link between ADHD and menopause, and those two. And we know this because we support another ADHD diagnosis and treatment service, and we know that there is a very, very strong link between.
Well, what's the link? Sorry, I don't quite understand.
So the links are they can make those menopause symptoms significally worse. So
that must be fun.
There's a lot of research in this area, and that ADHD can make those symptoms significantly worse.
Wow.
So there's strong links with that, and as we learn more and more, and as people are prepared to talk about, I've got ADHD, and I've got, we can make those links. So for us, it's very key to make that personalized journey, and make those links. And your GPs are not necessarily going to manage that.
They really, I mean, bless them, but they've got a fairly full workload. And
absolutely.
I mean, I got HRT I say simply, I'm quite a tall and large lady and quite imposing, by having a meeting with my doctor in face-to-face and saying it depends on how much blood they want on their hand where I go out and kill people. Because my road rage when I'm in a car before HRT was huge. Flying off the handle is something I'm quite well associated with. But actually for me, I've come as a full disclosure. I mean, I went to Bodyline because I absolutely loved that personalized journey. I loved the fact that I talked to somebody who also knew about diabetes, because I'm diabetic. So it was that holistic view again of what I needed, and the difference between HRT tabs, which if you're lucky you will get from your doctor, and actually having this personal service with balanced levels of the different hormones that you need, along with vitamin D. It was an absolute game changer for me, and I can't stress how much and how important that is. And we'll go on in a little while to Maggie, and Maggie will talk about her journey. But it's really important. This isn't really a nice to have. If you want to maintain senior level ladies, you want to encourage them to join your firm, this is really important. I mean, we've got a load of the business costs and things involved there. The mental health thing's interesting because, as with getting things like autism diagnoses, what I've seen is that if you go through the mental health avenue to your insurers or your EAP, that's how you get the ongoing support. So that is the gateway, if you like. But you're absolutely right in what you're saying, Sally, that it's often nothing to do with mental health. It's just the symptoms.
Yeah. And
so sorry, back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have a look at these other health risks that we've got on this list here, that UTIs is
it's a massive thing, isn't it?
So where women are going constant UTIs, and that is an absolute. It's very easy for us to fix through estrogen pessaries. It's game changing, really simple treatment. And you look at a woman who's got a UTI. If you've ever had a UTI,
oh yes,
and it's very, very difficult it's very difficult to, you know, have that level of concentration, things like that. But that is a typical one that we see a lot of, easy fix. You know, it's also blood pressure, higher blood pressures, and, you know, they can then end up in this cycle of being treated for blood pressure, which really, you know, we can actually reduce down. And the other one is joint pain is another one. You know, easy fix, you know, generally with estrogen, they're going, do you know what? I've never had joint pain, and I'm starting to get up in the morning and I'm feeling, is it my age?
But isn't it strange, women's reluctance? I mean, we've got a note here from Jill saying about that she's 57, she's starting to be impacted now, even at 57, with these sort of things. We've got other people saying that they're in the percentage of actually wanting to change jobs because of the brain fog. But the reluctance to then associate that to a very physical, very personal thing, like no longer having periods, which happens to every woman. But there's such an embarrassment. There's such a roadblock to it. My neighbour refuses to get tested. She's got bad joints. She's got brain fog. She's got dry skin. She gets you. I mean, you look at those health risks. She's there.
Yeah.
Will she go and get a bloody test? No, she won't. Refuses to accept it. She's 53. I'm saying, sweetheart, seriously, you're going through the menopause. You've been through it. You're now the other side. Get it treated. We deserve to live the best lives we can, and this is one way of doing it.
I think there are bigger issues on the other end, and really it's around the data, which we are going to see more of, I think, over the coming years, which is the link of estrogen, and we know that link with bone density, but there's more and more research on it now because menopause is on the map, and the other one is the links with Alzheimer's and dementia. And we were shown some data at a conference in London, and it, you know, the international research on those areas of the mental aspect and the link with estrogen is big. And, you know, it's just that we're not publishing it here because it's not UK data. And in the States, for example, they've got a lot more evidence because it didn't drop off a cliff when everybody said, oh, HRT and it linked to cancer. So they have more to go from. So there's a lot more to come down the line on this, of those increasing health risks. If you don't, you know, treat those levels and, you know, look at that those health consequences at the other end can be quite significant.
Well, you've got a question here from somebody saying, I've just started, I'm perimenopausal, and now I'm really worried. I'm being told I can only stay on it for 5 years. What the hell happens after that?
So I would disagree with that. And so
there you go. Don't panic. You've heard it from the expert.
We, you know, our philosophy would be, you know, we've had people who've been taken off it from the GP because they've been uninformed. And we put them back on it. And so there is, from our perspective, as long as you are being monitored and as long as, you know, all of those levels are what we would consider to be within tolerance and everything else is fine, there would be no reason to bring them off that. And indeed, we've got women in the 70s, 80s, you know, still on HRT.
We've got another comment here, thank you for that, Sally, where a sister's gone through menopause and actually doesn't believe this lady that she's suffering badly with it. So it's not even within the family you're going to have the same thing, are you? We're all different.
No, not at all.
All completely different, and all completely different because we all have different.
And your symptoms will change as well. You know, it's what you started with at 51 won't be what you'll be having at 56. So
again, joy. What fun this is, isn't it? But I have to say, the levelling out of your life through your service is extraordinary. And I mean, I'm really passionate about it. Maggie, we're going to come on to you in a minute, is really passionate about this, because if we don't proselytize, if we don't tell people there is a proper service that will make the world of difference to you and your family and the colleagues that work around you, because this is our mums, our sisters, our aunts, our grands, you know, our children that are coming through. We need to get this out in the open, talked about, normalized, and having the solution that you've got here. So what can they do right now? We've got this slide.
So there's obviously having a menopause policy we talked about, but there's lots of other things that you can do within the working environment. So I've just put some up here, and these are quite key, and just these little changes will certainly help that woman who's going through the menopause. So obviously we you know, look at your healthcare plan or an EAP. Is there something where you can actually signpost the women into a healthcare service? Flexibility is a big one, I think. Quite often, if you're having hot flushes, then you're not going to sleep at night, and so you're going into work tired. But if you've got that flexibility of either working from home or flex your hours, that's certainly going to take some of the pressure off. Temperature control, obviously, a lot of us flush. So just having a fan on your desk. And I know, Tracey, you do something at Microlink along those lines, don't you?
Yeah, we do something called a whisper fan, so that your IT teams, you can actually plug it into your laptop without your IT trying to come around and shoot you. It works well.
Dress code, obviously, if some people are in an environment where they need to wear a uniform, but can that be relaxed, or can it, when you're actually purchasing a uniform, are you looking at breathable material?
Yeah.
We've just done that with
cotton is our friend.
Yeah, we've all done that with all of our nurses, and they absolutely love it. But the material is specific, that it's quite absorbent, it's stretchy, and they absolutely love it, because and those are really significant things to get right. And so we've spent a lot of time getting the right material and the right uniforms.
I think a lot of women talk about brain fog, and actually, if managers, if they feel that they can go to the manager and say, do you know what, my head's just not in this space, I need a bit longer to do this project, without feeling repercussion there, then that's going to give them the confidence and get them through to be able to do that good job. But what used to take them maybe half an hour, it might need an hour, but the next day they'll be back to normal. So it's just having those adjustments and being listened to. I know, Maggie, obviously you're a champion for within your organisation, but a lot of companies that we're starting to talk to, it's form a club. Is there somewhere where I can go and just go, wow, this is what's happening to me, and be understood? It doesn't necessarily have to be in line manager, it can be your peers, but if you're making that acceptable within your workforce and have appointed menopause champions, so if you don't feel you can go to your line manager, you do know that there's somebody in that company that you can go and talk to. I think communication and training, and this goes across everybody, including our male colleagues. We need them not to shy away from it, because like Tracey said before, it's your mother, it's your sister, your colleague at work, it's your wife. So the more that they are educated around it, the more tolerance, I guess, or understanding there will be. So, I mean, I won't go through them all, but I think those are, they're just quite simple things.
And free.
And free. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We've got a couple of questions, if I can interject here, and then we need to get across to Maggie. But we've got things like, can you measure in perimenopause that people have gone into perimenopause?
Yes.
You can. Okay, so that was one of the questions we've got here. There's a few we've had where people have left senior positions at 49 because they've not been able to cope with the menopause, which is obviously a huge loss to that business and the economy in general and everything else and the community that person's from. So somebody is 53, they're asking, they're up in Scotland, can they get, is HRT safe for them to take? Well, I'd say at 53, absolutely it is, isn't it? We were talking about going up to 70, 80.
Yeah, I mean, our service, honestly, is we do a full medical consultation where we would screen somebody from their medical history, is, because obviously we're regulated as the same healthcare provider as your local hospital and GP surgery. So we are a healthcare provider. So, is it safe? you know, without looking at that person individually, we would go, yes, it is safe or it's not safe. And that might not be the only solution. And if it isn't safe, we've potentially got something else in the toolkit. So, you know, it's about treating everybody individually. But obviously everybody, from our perspective, gets a full medical history review, symptom checker, bloods. That is a completely digital service. So it doesn't matter whether you're in Scotland, Ireland, England, Wales. We do it all over video link with our clinicians. We have blood test kits that we send out through the post, easy to take on a Tap 2 device. So we've got a completely digital solution. So this is why, from a corporate perspective, we can go across, doesn't really matter, even if the corporate's global.
Wonderful. And as I said, I've taken advantage of that. Worked really well. I had Louise as my blood buddy. You get a little boo-boo pack and everything so that you don't get any bruising. It was a very straightforward process. I felt a bit silly I couldn't use it, but Louise was on hand, which was wonderful. Can we stop with slides currently?
Yes,
Can I bring Maggie in
Yes.
as lived experience lady? Maggie, would you like to tell us why you talk about this?
Yes, sure. I'm kind of very much post-menopausal now, but I can think back to a time in my life, probably about 10 years ago now, where I didn't realize it at the time, I had sort of menopausal symptoms creeping in, and they were they're affecting me in work, out of work. I would say initially, you know, I felt as if it wasn't really talked about then. I think we've come a whole big way since then. And just the fact of not talking about it then made it even more difficult. There was kind of two things. You weren't aware that all these different symptoms were related to menopause, and B, it just made it very difficult for me to open up about. And for me, it was more, I can remember then just hearing more about the physical symptoms, such as hot flushes always being mentioned. But for me, it was really more around the psychological impact that I felt. I felt my brain wasn't functioning the way that it used to. And I just almost didn't recognize myself anymore. It was like a stranger. You know, I wasn't able to perform in the way that I had been previously. And then that in turn creates a whole cycle of anxiety, because I ended up being on the edge the whole time, very emotional. It really impacted big time in my confidence levels. And I know some of the slides earlier pointed out the statistics of women either leaving the workforce or considering it. And I did consider it. I had my resignation notice written out because I'd had such a rough time at work. And
was there a lack of understanding from the environment as well? Because you couldn't articulate it, or they just didn't know, or both?
It was both, because I can remember having a conversation with two of my line leaders at the time. And it was a time where I think I was being questioned a lot over my performance in work. And that didn't feel very nice at all, because it's something I'd never experienced all my life. You know, I'd always kind of put a lot of effort into work and was quite proud in the, you know, the levels that I could work at. But the fact that at that time, I didn't even recognize those things as being related to menopause meant it was difficult for me to explain. And then also it just felt as if there's that general embarrassment amongst all of us that, you know, even if I did start to try and talk about it, you know, the other people, they didn't know what to do.
Well, the euphemisms of we always used to say it was women's trouble, or the painters were in, or Aunt Flo's home, or the rabbits died, or all those Sally remembers. You remember, we all had them, didn't we?
Yes,
and it was like
absolutely.
all I used to say to my boss years ago, as I'd just go, "Oh, it's women's troubles. I can't make it in today." He'd be like, "Oh, yes, all right, love. Just come back when you're ready." That was what we got. But I'm fascinated, Maggie, because you're talking about this being something in the past. Is it better now? What changed it? What happened?
It's much better now. And I think for me, having had that personal experience has made me want to kind of make it different for other people.
Mm.
And I think what's happened since that time is we have started to just raise awareness an awful lot more. You know, in the workplace, we have awareness courses. We
What,
also,
specifically to menopause?
yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Specifically to men, but just to raise awareness for both line leaders and for employees as well. Last year, I co-wrote a guidance document with a colleague around menstrual and menopausal health, you know, guidance for the workplace.
Yeah.
And that was aimed at everybody. So not just the employees themselves going through menopause, but their line leaders, their colleagues, you know, just to raise better understanding. So, you know, those different things have happened. We have usually about 2 or 3 times in the year, we run a workshop, a menopause workshop, and that's open to everybody, not just women. It's, you know, anybody can come along to that. And they have been really successful. So I think the difference has been just talking about it more and actually encouraging that safe environment so that people feel they can open up about it. Yeah, and sometimes even I think line leaders, it's difficult for them to know what to say or just, you know, going back to the fact that thinking I didn't recognize at the time that's what it was for me. But if other people are educated in that, then they can maybe point out, do you not think, you know, maybe you think, could it be menopause? You know, could you be stuck?
We've got a request in here, Maggie, I don't know whether you can. Are you happy to share the guidance that you've mentioned? I don't know whether you can. It might be an internal resource that you can't. But if there is anything that you can share, or perhaps if you've got something, Louise and Sally, that forms a framework that we can share with colleagues on the line so that they can look at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we need to, often it's difficult to think, well, where do you start with that?
Where do you start?
But isn't it interesting? It's the same conversation, whether or not it's mental health, menopause, musculoskeletal, or it's diabetes. It's still, Maggie, how are you? How are you doing, love? What's happening? Tell me. What's happening in your life? What can we do? Conversation. It's that treating people as humans. And this is a very human of human conditions in reality, isn't it? Did your mum tell you about it? Because I know mine didn't.
No, my mum didn't.
This was a complete surprise to me. It was like, hey, who knew? But I bet if we did a quick poll, we're not going to. If we did a quick poll, that most people didn't hear from their mums.
Yeah, that's right.
And isn't that extraordinary? I mean, even if we took one action from this, that we made sure that all of us, fabulous women on the call and fabulous men, or fabulous they, whoever you may be, that we actually make sure that we talk about it.
Yeah.
And
that we tell people.
Yeah, and I think you know we're quite honoured to be in the space of doing innovation, because what we also do is listen to organisations say, what is it that you want? You know, an organisation may want us to come in and do a clinical workshop, bring some nurses along, you know, we can do a bit of testing, we can talk from, you know, what the options are available, because you know, a lot of people only get that 2 or 3 minutes with the GP. They're uninformed in it, and it's a one-size-fits-all approach. Well, that's not all that's out there. There's lots of different options out there. So we can support that process of education from a clinical point of view, that people feel, oh, actually, you know, there are other solutions out there. It's not, you know, so it's education and awareness, and then, you know, what are those options out there? And HRT is not for everybody, but just simply looking at their supplementation of vitamin D, vitamin B12, all of those things, simply getting those right can be a game changer for some women.
Isn't that interesting? To a point, we've had a couple of questions on here about, or comments rather, about one woman who's managed by a 32-year-old male and feels they can't discuss the menopause with him. What the team from Bodyline are happy to do is to come along and talk like this within your own organisation. They can come in and do a presentation that's tailored specifically to you, that you can get line managers and HR to come along to, so that they're all educated in a way that means that you don't, as an individual, have to go and go, this is a bit embarrassing. I need to tell you that if these circumstances are around, I'm struggling. But Maggie, what it was not just you're carrying this forward, which is so important, but you actually, when you talk about your own symptoms, you had I was like this, I had. So what changed that to you no longer having the brain fog and having more confidence back?
Yeah, HRT has been a
That
big
was the game changer for you.
savior for me, and it's absolutely right what Louise is saying earlier, that that has been adjusting all the way as well. So although, you know, I can't remember when I first started HRT, but I've had a few iterations over the years, because, you know, your body changes, and then, you know, your hormone levels changes, so you need something different. So in fact, I am currently awaiting another referral back to gynae, because, you know, things are just needing to be looked at again.
But it's being aware of that, isn't it?
It is
Those
being aware
changes
of
in your
that.
body and not burying your head in the sand.
And
Yeah,
it's also
and it's
having
good.
the confidence, isn't it, that there are those solutions out there. Once you have got that supported journey of, it's an empowerment.
Huge.
Once you understand it, you can help manage that process yourself. This is not just about going to the NHS, or, you know, our personalised journey is we do it together, and people are empowered in order to, because people want to be able to manage it themselves, and they want to understand, actually, got a bit of joint pain, actually, is that a little bit, do we up the estrogen? Now we'll give from our nursing team the confidence that they can do that. You know, on their next review, they go, I've upped this a little bit, right? Okay, so we'll keep an eye on it, and if we thought that it's something that we need to test for, that they're still within those tolerance areas in order to keep them safe, you know, because obviously we don't want people on really high estrogen levels, so, you know, because of those risks. So it is about giving people the confidence of where you can go with that, so that they can manage that journey themselves and they feel empowered.
Yeah,
and that you feel great once you've gotten through all of it. The impact, the positive impact for you is huge. It cannot be underestimated how good it is. There was a comment there that somebody just said to the person who asked about his wife, asking how she is. I'd always recommend getting a bottle of wine, making dinner, taking the kids out, taking over some of the duties that she would normally have. Is a really great way of showing that you understand, that you get some of the things that she's going through. So what else have we got?
All things can build up in you as well. You know, you've got all that stuff going on, and life stuff going on in the background.
Life stuff.
Yeah, because I know, you know, previously, going through a number of life changes at the time, and then adding in, you know, menopause into the whole mix. And, you know, lots of women who are kind of menopausal, perimenopausal, menopausal age have got lots of these things going on. So just a little bit of understanding goes a long way.
Well, I was just going to say, and I've just put a slide up where they're men in the menopause, because it really impacts relationships hugely. And I think if you can sit down together and have that open discussion, and then, you know, as women we may lash out, as you were saying, Tracey, your road rage at one point.
I'm not fun. I'm not fun.
And you know, we've all been in that situation, but actually it don't take it personally as husband, partner, father. Don't take it personally. We're just having a bad day. It's understates knowing that, isn't it?
I think one of the other ways is about you know, inclusion with menopause, because I think sometimes it's how do you bring that in, because it's just applicable to that sector. And you can widen that offering then to maybe do a well man and a well woman. Now the well woman clearly will include the menopause. So, you know, there are other ways to roll this within an organisation to, you know, say, you know, we're introducing a well man and a well woman, but actually the well woman will also identify perimenopause or menopause as part of that offering.
Yeah.
So, you know, it may well be that they, you know, they go, oh, so what about the men? You know, and what's, you know, where is this scenario? So, you know, we're looking at widening those elements to say, well, we can include it in the well woman. So it's a well woman and it's a well man. And we could, you know, we can roll out offerings like that, which is all inclusive.
So a whole different debate, but obviously we do look at men and testosterone, because there are sometimes
andropause. I'm always talking about
do get some of
andropause.
these symptoms,
Yeah.
the anxiety, the stress, and this is down to low testosterone. So we do treat that, and with as part of our Explore range, we can do that, or we can do a testosterone. So we just want to say to the men out there, if you are feeling some of these symptoms that we've talked about, well, actually it could be down to low testosterone, and maybe that's something that we need to do a whole different
and it's another
channel
one
on, really, but
that primary.
And I have to say, we touched upon it lightly, and people hate me using the word or the phrase fanny juices, but it comes into the whole discussion about how you feel about your sexuality and the sex you're having with a partner or not having.
Yes.
Because it can impact that intimacy so strongly. And estrogen, again, what a lifesaver that is.
Absolutely. And when we look at testosterone, especially for men, the type of typical symptoms, obviously libido might be one of them, but one of them is tiredness, fatigue, and irritability. Those are the areas. So, when you align them, it's another thing that's not talked about a lot. Primary care doesn't treat this very well. They've got very outdated guidelines in it. So it's another area where a personalized journey gets a better result. So all of those things, it's about wellness, and it's about actually, once you get the wellness bit right, and that balance right, that you're more productive, you're more it's just a game changer, because it affects so many aspects of your life.
Absolutely.
Maggie, what else would you like to say about your journey through menopause?
Just to think, to help, for me, a lot of it was about helping myself. So, just look, there's tons of resources out there, different sort of websites that you can go on to. I read a lot. So I read a lot of books around menopause, looking at my diet, maybe how I maybe needed to adjust that.
Did that impact it?
The right vitamins. I think it did. And I also kind of cut down on my caffeine as well, which made a difference too, because I think the caffeine interacts with your hormone levels. Although I do still need the full Buna boost every now and again. I started picking up practicing yoga, because I found that really helpful for the kind of mental health effects, because I was, very impacted in that way. I did at the time approach internally our EAP service, because because of all the other stuff that was going on in the background for me, that helped too. So it's just having a general all-round awareness of what's going on for you. And I found it handy actually to kind of track my symptoms, just keep a little journal of, maybe how I was feeling day to day. And then that helped when I went to have my conversation with my GP or with the menopause clinic, if I had things written down on specific dates and had other factors, that were going on for me that day, or medication that I'd taken that day, because it's hard to look back and remember those things, but if you've got a written record of them going on, then I've found that very useful, and that's
that helps with brain fog at work as well.
Yes, I still dip in and out of that. If I feel things are kind of changing a bit, and I'll start to just maybe have a little written record of them again, so that I can notice, what's actually going on.
It's that conscious thought about ourselves, actually looking after ourselves as women, which we tend to look after everyone around us. And it is the self-care. It's a great phrase, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got about 7 minutes. I wanted to ask some of the questions, if I may, to the group. One of the things that I do want to really stress, that Louise and Sally are here for all of your questions. If you want to get in touch with them afterwards, we can give you their contact details. This isn't something that's going to go away. Half the workforce are females. If you look into companies like, if I took the NHS for an example, most of their senior managers, the senior staff nurses are all females. The NHS still doesn't get this right. They don't look after their own staff in a way that we would like them to necessarily, but they can't afford the brain drain. because we're talking about an accumulated maybe 40 years worth of experience literally leaving your business.
Mhm.
We're talking about boards not having that representation. We all know the stats around, boards having at least a third women make more money. NHS, at least a third more women in the operating theatres means better outcomes for patients. It's all around this third. I mean, I personally prefer halves than thirds because I'm a bit of a greedy girl. But I think it's so, so important that there is a process, that there is something that is measurable. And as I said, I can only say from my own personal experience how amazing it was. I didn't think it would make that much difference. I didn't think it could. I'd already got this little sticky tab that I stick on my tummy every day, but it really, really does. So I wanted just to ask a few questions. We've got, can you get tested for perimenopause, which we've said, which you
Yes.
can.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's one of the questions that we got from I can't say that word. Somebody who didn't put their name down. We've got another question. I'm just trying to get it up. Sorry, my technology's here. Will we get a copy of the slides as well as the recording? Absolutely, yes, we will. We'll be sending that out. And it can be difficult for a cancer survivor in the workplace, although it is a protected characteristic. I went self-employed, so I can start work at 10 instead of at 8. And I mean, that's a classic example of what you're talking about there, isn't it, Louise?
It is, absolutely. And, and the Equality and Human Rights Commission, they've published new guidelines in 24 about disability at work, and menopause could be considered a disability.
Oh, it is now by law.
Adjustments are not
Yeah.
made. So, I think people just need to be very aware of that fact.
We haven't, I did some training with Evershed's law firm around reasonable adjustments in March this year. And as of that date, there were 2 cases that were starting to come through the law courts around menopause.
Yeah.
Yes.
So once you've got the initial ones come
Yeah.
through, that the test cases have gone through successfully,
Yeah.
it's going to be a thing. And we would rather that women actually got the support and the help that they need to contribute in the way that we would like to do within businesses, family, and everywhere else. But if you want to make sure that you're not going to get sued as a business, you need to be doing this and getting it right. So Louise, some hints and tips. We've got 3 minutes. What would you do? Maggie, you've given us some great things. That's self-care. That awareness, that taking a note so you can talk to a professional about what's going on and how you're feeling. And presumably that would feed into having that conversation at work.
Yeah.
If you get somebody calling you on productivity, you can say, this is where you're at.
We also have a wellness action plan, which doesn't just cover menopause, it causes anything really. And it's a kind of agreement that an individual can have with their line leader in terms of, these are the things that help to keep me well at work. So you can have, that discussion between the two of you so that they know what to do if they notice, X, Y, Z, then, you've already got it written down and agreed between you. So we found that really helpful as well.
I think one of the other things that we've occasionally been asked to do is a menopause audit, so that the organisation actually understands potentially what their demographic is. So what the demographic is across perimenopause and what the demographic is across menopause, and how that can actually wind that forward, what type of impact that can potentially have on a return on investment. So there's another way of doing that from a very proactive point of view, so that they can actually develop the plan from that demographic.
We've also got, thank you for that. We've also got a comment for Caroline, and thank you for the nuance on this around, it's not the menopause per se that's the disability, it's the impact that the menopause has.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And there have been some employment tribunals, apparently successful ones. So that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Not obviously for the employer, but it's good that it's been taken seriously.
Yeah.
So what other hints and tips have we got in the last minute? What's your key thing that you'd like people to take away, Louise and Sally?
Well, I think it is don't be afraid to go and seek help. Just don't be afraid to do that, and talk about it. Talk about it with your friends. Talk about it with your family. Talk about it with your employees.
Tell your daughters.
And go and find the help that you need.
Yeah, wonderful. Sally?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, we can innovate whatever solutions people want. And this is a new, you know, it's a new space about innovating, and be part of that innovation in your organisation to say, actually, this would work for us in whatever context that is. And we can design, you know, it's about innovation going, what is going to work for your organisation?
Love that.
We can build it. And,
You can
you know,
tailor
they're
it.
not all developed yet, but we're in this innovative space where we go, well, let's have a look, you know, can you do this? Yes.
So take advantage of it, guys. You've
Take
got somebody
advantage.
willing to do different.
We will work with you. Yeah.
Wonderful. We're at time. Sadly, we could have sat here for a lot longer, I'm sure. Thank you ever so much, Maggie. Really appreciate it. And Louise and Sally, fabulous as always. We'll send everything out to you guys, and thank you for joining. Really love it.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, Maggie.
Bye.